Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for taking time out of your busy day, and I know around the holiday season makes it even tougher, so thanks a lot for taking time to be with us today for our part 2 of our strategic planning series, putting it all together. And for those of you that weren't in attendance last time, if you'd like, I could actually send a copy of the presentation to you as well. All right, we did this a little bit different, and what we're going to do is do this in a 30-minute format. If we don't have time for questions, I will be available for you to either email or contact me directly on my direct phone, and that way I can give everybody a little bit more individual time and attention. So today's outline, I'm going to do an introduction of myself and the company. What I'm going to do also is do a recap of the SWOT and the key financial indicators from part 1. Then we'll talk about aligning with company mission, vision, setting some measurable and realistic goals, making sure that you understand that strategic planning is just picking a destination. So as a follow-on, have to develop an operational plan, which will be the steps that will be needed to actually arrive at the destination. And then, of course, monitor, evaluate, and refine and adjust. This will be, a very dynamic process, and with the environment always changing, the plan will always, need to be tweaked and updated as well. All right, our company is Moore Diversified Services. We are a full-service consulting firm that is dedicated to the senior living industry and healthcare. We do service both for-profit and not-for-profit. We've been in business for 40 years, and of course some of the services that we offer are the SWOT analysis and strategic planning, of course what we'll be talking about. Then we also do offer operational analysis, benchmarking, the investment advisory and due diligence, and also market and feasibility studies and pro formas. We also have a great program that might interest you, that is our shared executive or our retainer agreements. This way you can tap into our knowledge base for about 10 to 12 hours a month, and if you'd like to discuss that, we could do that privately after the webinar. My name is Roy Barker. I am the Director of Special Projects. I've been with MDS for just a little over 15 years. My education is I've tried to hit all the major points of the senior living industry to try to be as much help to our client base as possible. I have a finance degree, gerontology, and I'm pursuing a couple of degrees, one in marketing and one in industrial and organizational psychology, that can help us really get a handle on employee turnover in the industry, which most of you know is a big problem. Some of my service has been, I'm on the Dallas AAA Advisory Board, and was a former volunteer long-term care ombudsman here in the state of Texas, and a member of the Senior Living Roundtables, which is a group of vendors and senior living professionals that we meet in Dallas and in Boston as well. And of course my specialties: operations, marketing, employee retention, and then training and coaching. So let's get right into it. What is strategic planning? Strategic planning, sometimes it's kind of thought of as it can only be used for a company, but it can be used for many different things. You can use it for a corporation, a division. In our instance, in our industry, we could use it for a community or for different products or services, and you can also use it to evaluate personnel. What it should be is a vision of where the company is headed or the destination. Usually we like to try to track that about 2 to 4 years into the future. But like I said, this is going to be growing and dynamic, so it will need to be continually revisited and tweaked to match the operating environment or other factors that have changed since it was originally written. The other thing too, it gives an agreement of the intended outcomes. What are the results you're looking for? And then the end result will communicate to the others in the company, which is very important. Like I said, this differs from an operational plan, but you need the operational plan in order to set out the steps to get to the strategic goals that you're about to set. Why is this so important? Because it's going to help us determine a destination for a business, product, or service. It's a strategic guide where we can make use of that old adage, plan your work and work your plan. It's also great so that your team and your staff will have a document to look at, so we can make sure that everybody is moving in the same direction and that we can get some concurrence on where we want to go. It'll help define the use of resources and energies as we go through time. It can be used as a guide for the operational planning. Like I said, this is kind of like, it's like planning a trip. First thing we have to find out is where are we. Second thing we need to find out is where do we want to go, where do we want to be. And so what a strategic plan will give us that destination, and then we will use the operational planning in order to map the route of how we're going to get there. It'll be a litmus test for all future decisions. If big decisions have to be made, what you can do is bring out the strategic plan and say, does this move us closer to any one of these goals that we have set? It's also going to provide measurable goals that we can see and be accountable for. You'll use it to evaluate processes and procedures, and when done correctly, the process of strategic planning is just about as important as the results that we get, because what we're going to do is we're going to involve others on our team and our staff. We're going to get a consensus of where we need to move. We're going to get buy-in, and then we're going to figure out, together collectively how we can get there. So where's the best place to start? Well, the first thing you need to do is pick a team. And what we want to do is this needs to be cross-sectional. It's going to be from board members down to even some of your first contact staff. It's going to be across all lines of the company. You'll want, in senior living, we're going to want to get some of our admin team. We would want to have some from direct care. We want to have dietary. Want to have all the departments represented. And then we also want to make sure that we include not only just the most senior people, but we want to include people of all different levels of employment. Because sometimes when we have a new set of eyes that comes into our organization, they will be able to pick up things that we have just gotten used to, or maybe they have come from another employer in the industry and can provide some valuable insight into how others do it. We want to set up the planning meetings. We don't want to try to do this in one big, long, huge meeting. Set up a series of meetings that may last over 6 weeks to 2 months. Of course, we're going to remove all distractions. Only emergency would be a reason to interrupt one of these meetings. And then we want to try to keep the sessions positive and provide an encouraging environment where people feel safe in talking about these hard things that we need to talk about to move forward. And then when you plan a trip, the very first thing you need to find out is, where are you at now? Where are we starting at? So what we're going to use in order to help us do that would be a SWOT analysis, and then look at some data-driven high-level performance indicators. So what will a SWOT do for us? That's going to help us look at our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It takes a look inside and outside of our company and helps us start the planning process and gives us a good base to build off of. The S for strengths and the weaknesses would be internal to the company, and then the O and the T, the opportunities and the threats, would be things that are external to our company. And then, of course, like I said, a strategic plan, it doesn't have to be used for just a company. It can be used for, for a community, for the company as a whole, and it can be used for new products or services that we may want to roll out. And how do we make SWOT work for us? Well, what we do is we're going to identify the strengths and build on these, identify our weaknesses and resolve them. We're going to identify the opportunities, exploit these, and then of course we're going to avoid the threats. Some of the high-level key performance indicators that we might want to look at too would be, benchmarking operations, looking at our occupancy, margins, cash flow. Some marketing metrics might be leads to our vacant units, leads to tours to close, and then cost per acquisition. And then also employee turnover. Here again, it's such an issue in our industry. I think the average, that last reported average I've seen is about 45%, and a lot of people are way over. I'm working with the group now that has about 5 or 6 communities, and they are running in the 100%. And we generally try to look at about $7,500 for even an entry-level worker is what it costs to turn an employee over. And then as you move up the ranks, some executive ranks can be in the 200 to 400% of their annual salary. So what we want to do there is find out, what is the turnover rate, look at the financial impact, because I think if you actually write that number down on a piece of paper, you will surprise yourself at how big it is, and then try to determine who's leaving and why. So now that we've got a starting point, we've been through our SWOT, we've identified these key indicators, as to how we're operating now. The next thing we need to do is, and all these things I'm going to list on this page, what I was going to advise is to revisit, review them, or if you don't have them already, this would be a great time to develop, because what we want to do, want to match the strategic goals and the direction we're moving. They need to be in line with our mission statement, which is, why we're in business, and basically a statement of purpose. We also need to align them with our vision statement, because that is where, where do we want to be in the next 2 to 4 years, and our vision statement would answer that. We want to also look at the values of our company. What are our philosophies, principles, what do we stand for? And then, of course, the company culture. It's very important that our goals that we are looking at need to be very consistent with all of these. So let's talk about setting goals. Like I said, we want to make sure that they're aligned with the mission, vision statements, and then, of course, our company or community values and culture. Sometimes we have to ask the tough questions, and this is why we need to provide that safe environment to the employees, because this is not a time to sugarcoat things. We need to find out what is the real situation, and we also need to find out, where we can move in the future. We want to request the data that's necessary. Don't be scared to ask the question, and maybe have different departments provide more data upon request. Research solutions, and this is why we try not to solve our strategic planning in one long session. What we can do is break it into smaller meetings where we can not only give our department heads the time to get the data that we're requesting, but we can also look at researching solutions. So maybe we have 2 or 3 to choose from, and make sure that we are looking at the best options and all the options that are on the table. Of course, we want to use that SWOT analysis to, like I said, we want to, build on our strengths, address our weaknesses, and exploit the opportunities, and then, avoid any threats that are out there. When we set goals, we want to make sure that they're concrete. They need to be measurable, and it's very important that they're ambitious but attainable. We don't want to set goals that are too lofty that we know that we'll never reach, but on the same hand, we don't want to set goals that we're already making or that would be easy to make, where there's really not a challenge and there's really not a change in our operation procedures. And establish realistic timelines. We all want to maybe increase our margins, but can we increase them by next week? And the answer is probably not. We need to set realistic timetables for the goals and make sure that these goals are obtainable so that we don't lose the buy-in from our employees. And then, of course, we want to be consistent as we go through this process. One system that you see a lot of or hear a lot about is the SMART system for setting goals. It's be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So that's a great acronym to use. So there are some additional questions that we may want to answer as we go through this process. And the first one is, what is critical to the success of the community or the company? We may have things that we want, but the very first things that we need to identify are, what are those things to help us sustain? What are the behaviors or processes that we want to change? And we need to think about that globally, because there could be some other things that are outside of the financial and marketing, and just using those for examples. But this is a very good time to look at all the different processes and procedures that you have that you may want to tweak. And while sometimes our crystal balls do get a little bit foggy, it's always a good idea to ask, what can go wrong? What are things that can get in the way? Is it a change of environment? Is it a change of employee? So what we need to do is, as we think about the different goals that we want to achieve, we need to also think about what are some stumbling blocks that we can plan for, because if we set a really good plan and then stumbling blocks get in the way and we don't take the time to remove or address them, then it's really been a wasted process. The other thing too is to be very reflective. Like I said, this strategic plan, we're trying to look about 2 to 4 years out, but what we really need to think about too collectively is, what do we want this organization to look like in 5 to 10 years? Are we in growth mode? Are we in sustain mode? Are we even in a pare down mode where maybe we're selling off some assets or some properties? So, everybody is in different stages of, their business life cycle. So it's really good to take a hard look at, where do you want to be in that 5 to 10 year time frame? And then, of course, what do we want to achieve? Kind of goes back with where we want to be, but, do we want to achieve, adding some additional properties? Do we want to achieve maybe additional units added on, or different levels of care that we may want to expand into? And then, what does success look like? If we could take just a minute and draw out, what does success look like for you? What do you think that would be? And then that way you can gear these strategic goals to that. Now, these next 4 slides, what I've tried to do is just show some sample of some resident care, some financial, some marketing, and some HR goals. And these are very high level, because it's very generic. Like I said, it depends on your community, your company, where you are in your business cycle, but there's a lot of room to even take more of a micro view of these, and to have some strategic goals that kind of drill down a little bit further than these examples. But a great example here might want to increase the resident net promoters by X number of basis points. And the reason I use basis points instead of percent in this example is sometimes it gets confusing if we're at 90% occupancy and we say we want to grow occupancy by 1% every year. People become confused that is that like going from 90 to 91 or is it 1% of 90? So sometimes when we're talking about percentages, and I've used basis points, but that way it's a little bit clearer to everybody involved. The other thing in this statement is the net promoter. This is a great system of doing surveys, and it can be used with both residents, it can be used with staffing, can be used all kinds of ways. But what it basically does, it boils everything down to one question, and that is, would you recommend us to a friend or relative? And I won't get into all the mechanics of it. They have refined it a little bit more to have a 0 to 10 scale, and a little bit of taking some of that out and doing a little division to find out, what your net promoters are. But it's very simple and it's very easy to understand. It's not very lengthy and complicated, but it gives you the basic results. Are you performing well enough that your residents, family, or staff would actually, recommend your community or company to friends or relatives? So another example could be that we may want to reach and maintain X number of net promoters in the next 36 months and beyond. We also want to acknowledge and respond to resident and family complaints within X number of hours, decrease by X number % each year those residents that leave because they may be moving to another assisted living facility or another, independent or whatever kind of community or level of care that you may have. And then also, may want to look at resident engagement. A couple of the sample human resource goals would be, very much to decrease employee turnover by X number of basis points over a certain time period, achieve and maintain a turnover rate that's acceptable, increase employee training. And then here again, you see that we can use this net promoter system to say, would an employee recommend to one of their friends to come to work for your company, or would they recommend your community to a friend or relatives that might need care in the future? And then, of course, to reach and maintain net promoter ratio. And like I said, these are just examples. Every community, every company will have their own set of goals. What I was trying to just do is show that we want to be very specific about what we want to achieve. We want to put, we don't want to just say that we want to decrease turnover. We want to say we want to decrease turnover by X, and then we want to put a timeline over it by 12, 24, 36 months, whatever it is we need, whatever the appropriate time we feel like we need to achieve that. Some sample financial goals, of course, increase revenue. We might want to increase the level of care revenue that currently getting. We want, maybe we would like to hold expenses to X % of an increase year over year going forward, increase excess margin, or maybe even look at cash flow. So, then some sample marketing goals can be to increase occupancy by X number of basis points over the next X number of years. This example, I used to maintain a certain % of occupancy over a range of 3 to 5 years, increase our leads, increase tours, or to achieve and maintain a certain closing rate of, you can either look at tours or the leads over a 12 or 24 month period. So kind of wrapping up the process, after we've come up with this plan, the first thing we want to do is distribute a final draft to our committee members. We want to make sure that everybody's buying into it, that they will be able to talk to others about it, and then we also want to make sure that those who are responsible can get a feel what they're going to be responsible for. Then we want to distribute a final draft to the entire company, and we want to encourage, here again, constructive, not just complaints, but we want to encourage constructive feedback from everybody, because there could be people that weren't involved in the planning process that either might have an idea or they might see something that somebody on this planning team did not see. You can also test assumptions. It's great to make assumptions that we can do this and it will affect that, but run some small samples. It's better to find out earlier that this is not going to affect change, so you can reallocate your resources versus going through a 2 to 3 year period and then finding out that maybe some of these assumptions weren't correct. The biggest thing too is it's great to have these strategic goals and everything that we've set, but it's very very important to develop an operational plan, which will be the steps needed to achieve these goals. Excuse me. Then we're going to determine who's accountable for each one of these goals. We also want to, have a reporting mechanism so that we can, celebrate milestones, or if, milestones aren't being reached, that we can figure out, why, if the plan needs to be tweaked a little bit, or if it's just a little slower than we might have first thought. Evaluate the progress and the processes involved. And then, of course, we want to measure results. That, if we make a great plan and we say we want to achieve these goals, if we don't ever measure that to see, are we changing, are we getting to our goals, then it's going to be, you'll end up losing your team. People will become very dissatisfied, and they won't think that the upper administration is buying into it. So it's very important to evaluate, to measure, and to report. And then also we want to reward the employees that make this happen. It's very important to get out and just pat some people on the back, be sure that we tell them great job, and try to keep that enthusiasm moving forward. So I'm kind of running a little bit behind. I know I'm fixing to recap, and then I promise that we'll wrap up here in just a few seconds. But what we want to do is, recap on where to begin. What is a strategic plan? It's going to be our destination vision of where we want to be. It's going to help communicate our goals to others and then set measurable targets. Why we want to do this is not only does it communicate our desires of where we want to be, but it gives us something to measure our progress against. And then the other thing too is the process of this planning and building a team and setting goals and figuring out ways to get there. That's just as important as the end plan. It gets the buy-in of the people that make this happen. Of course, we want to use the SWOT analysis to help in this process. Gives us an internal, external view of our company, community, product, or service. Gives us a starting point to where that we can, finish our operational map to get us to our strategic goals and be successful. And then look at, of course, at our at these high-level key performance indicators, financial, marketing, employee turnover, and many others, just depending upon your company or your community. Then putting it all together, we want to align these with our mission and vision statements, company values, and company culture. We can, as we set goals, we can use the SMART system to be specific, make sure they're measurable. We want them to be achievable, and then we want them to be realistic, and we want them to be timely. We need to be sure that we communicate what these goals are, how we're going to get there, evaluate them, follow up, And then probably one of the most important pieces is just, to reward the employees and be sure that we praise everybody for getting there. All right, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day. We want to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday season coming up on us. This is my contact information, my email, my phone number. If you want to write it down, feel free to give me an email or feel free to give me a call and be glad to discuss this with you in private. Thank you a lot and have a great afternoon.